Before we go anywhere with installations, let's begin first by just getting a feeling, getting our arms around the different kinds of editions that exist here with Windows Server 2016. This is important because, different from previous versions of the operating system, we have some very important changes in what features are actually available in the different kinds of editions that exist. Here with Windows Server 2016, there are two major editions that we're talking about here, the Data Center Edition and the Standard Edition. And let's actually step through then what the differences are, what the feature set differences are between these two different editions to gain an appreciation for which one we should select when it comes time to spec out our new licenses for our servers. Obviously, both of these come with the core functionality for that particular version of the operating system. All the usual stuff that you think of as Microsoft Windows very obviously comes in both editions of this operating system. Beyond this point is where some of the differences begin to occur, one of those having to do with the use of Hyper-V containers. Now, Hyper-V containers, as you'll find out in other courses in our Server 2016 curriculum, are a very different animal than the traditional server containers that you may have more familiarity with. Hyper-V containers are more kind of like virtual machines and containers than the traditional containers that you're used to working with. These Hyper-V containers are important because they provide additional added layers of security or really separation between the containers that can exist on a single host. The Standard Edition, as you can see here, offers two Hyper-V containers with the license, and Data Center Edition here provides unlimited Hyper-V containers. You may notice this as being kind of similar to how things worked with virtual machines back in previous versions of the operating system, with lesser, less expensive versions supporting only a smaller number of virtual machine licenses, and more expensive versions like Data Center supporting unlimited numbers of virtual machines. This is different because we are dealing with containers here as opposed to virtual machines like what we were in previous versions. So we do have this difference here as it relates to Hyper-V containers. When it comes to the regular containers, those that are just your traditional server containers, both editions here support unlimited containers. Both editions also support the security feature that is the Host Guardian service, as well as the use of the Nano Server option as well. There are other licensing restrictions and gotchas associated with the use of Nano Server that we'll talk about later on here in this course, but recognize that the basic use of Nano Server is available with both editions of this OS. It's at this point now that really we start to see the major differences between the two different editions here. Down there in Standard Edition, this sort of ends all the different features that you get. But over in Data Center, for that extra cost you're spending, that then supports the additional features that exist like Storage Spaces Direct, like the use of Storage Replica, like shielded VMs, and also the advanced networking stack that you may want to use there with Hyper-V. So as you can see here that if you plan on using some of these more advanced features, you are going to have to spend just a bit more to buy up to the Data Center Edition. You can assume here that for much of the Windows Server 2016 content here in the Pluralsight catalog, that it is probably best to employ the Data Center Edition, at least in your demo environment, to support all these other features and functions that we'll be working through, and again, all the content you'll see here in the Pluralsight catalog.